YouTube, good evening. HeirofCarthage here, and let's run through another replay. This is Rome versus Suebi. I'm playing a Suebi. I gotta be honest with you all, I have no idea how to use Suebi in this patch, and I was not real happy with the build I brought here. But if you take a look at the build my opponent brought, it's gonna be an interesting fight. He's chosen to bring Eagle cohorts rather than Evocati, which might help me. He also has Syrian archers rather than slingers, which is going to help me. But yeah, Rome's kind of scary against Suebi at this point. Also, he brought those two Numidian cav, which also don't frighten me too much from a cav standpoint. So let's walk through my Suebi build. So why do I think Suebi is a challenging faction to use right now? It's mainly because their lack of sword infantry at an affordable price. Berserkers are great, but they're still pretty expensive, and sword masters are ridiculously expensive because they have the encourage ability. So up front, I've got just a charge bait unit, which is a spear levy. Behind them, I've got a line of Wodenaz spears, kind of making up my base. And so Wodenaz spears, I believe they have the encourage ability, but they're one of the cheapest units with the encourage ability. A fairly sturdy unit. Probably similar to a hoplite, but with a lot less armor. So they are vulnerable to missiles. That's one thing with the Suebi. Pretty much all the Suebi troops are vulnerable to missiles, so it's something to be aware of. And they don't have the best skirmishers to fight back with. Longbow hunters really need to have the 150 range, in my opinion, and heavy shot and a few other things. But in any case, I've got 4 berserkers. I think 5 Wodenaz spears, 2 noble riders. I have 1 scout rider hidden out here on the flank. And I have 2 Night Raiders, which are ambush spear units that can hide anywhere. They're not great, but these aren't bad units, and I brought them for one main reason, which is they scare enemy units, much like a Berserker unit does, so I'm going for a shock army here against the Romans. Now, if the Romans were... It's pretty easy, in my opinion, to beat Suebi with Rome. But then again, that's just my opinion. I haven't had a whole lot of time playing as them, so I don't entirely understand them yet. Though I think in some ways, you almost have to use them similar to what you would in Rome 1, as kind of like a shock army. Have to use their shock value in order to get anything done. But even in Rome 1, you had the very long range, what were they, chosen archer warbands or something like that. Yeah, I don't remember what they called them, chosen archers. They were something like that. Anyway, they were very good skirmishers. Well, you do have these slingers from the Suebi, which are Germanic slingers. They're not very good, but they don't cost very much. And you also have longbow hunters, which aren't all that good, but they don't cost very much. One of the main things that I think that the Suebi have going against them is, well, and you know what? I don't remember if they have javelin access or not. If they have javelins, they might be able to overcome some of this. You'd have to use some meat shields and stuff. I'm not saying the Suebi are an unusable faction, I'm just saying I don't really understand how to do it yet. So if you all have found some good Suebi builds, let me know in the comments and I'll give them a try. But in any case, you all see what I managed to do here. My opponent is playing kind of easy on me. Number one, he could have deployed right here on this hill, but he chose to deploy over here for some reason. Not sure, look at that squiggly old line, he chose to do this. Not sure why, because the terrain doesn't even favor him coming that way. It's actually uphill. So my opponent definitely should have captured this hill, since you kind of get an unfair starting position on this side of the map. And I kind of expected him to capture this hill, so that's the way I prepared to play. I even have my my Night Raiders in position to come up behind him, because I was expecting him to camp, and I was going to just get him distracted, all of a sudden pop in my Night Raiders, and then charge from the front with my Berserkers. I do have to be careful, so his Syrian archers aren't a huge threat to me. I think my slingers could potentially take them head-on. I don't know, though. I've never tried that. It's hard to say. But I am worried about him getting a hold of my Berserkers. It wouldn't take many shots for these guys to take out my Berserkers, and my Wodenaz spears are going to be fairly vulnerable to him also. So I have to approach cautiously here. I do get a frenzied charge on his Legionary Cav. My opponent did not micro well through most of this battle, and I don't know if it's because he's new or what. And I'm not trying to say that to be mean, I'm just being honest. His Legionary Cav, though, is horrible, and even had he microed it, to be quite frank, and without infantry support, there was no way he was going to win this fight. Noble Cav is so ridiculously superior to Legionary Cav that's not even funny. Legionary Cav is not good for much. It's good at taking on a few skirmishers, and that's about it. It's quite weak and won't win in a Cav fight versus almost anything. It is affordable, though, so I guess that's its one good side. I accidentally made my Night Raiders visible over here. I didn't mean to do that, and I shouldn't have been so ambitious about how much they could hide, especially without cover. So I decided to pull them back, hoping that maybe since my opponent's made a few micro mistakes, he didn't see these guys. So you'll notice that I'm pulling him back over here to try and get cover again. So now I have cover because there's no line of sight. But I do believe that... I don't believe the routing units betray my position. Yeah, so I'm going to head back up the hill with the Night Raiders, and essentially what I'm going to try and set up is I'm going to present, so I'm going to move forward, use this little hill here as a skirmishing position. So I'm going to present here, and then I'm going to present my Night Raiders as a threat on his flank to try and keep my opponent guessing. And essentially my plan is to use my Cav now to chase back his skirmishers, because my opponent can't stop me. So what I'll do is bring in my light Cav, bring in my heavy Cav, chase off his skirmishers, and look right now, here I sprung out of the woods, and his archers are still on skirmish, and so I'm going to chase them forward away from his infantry protection. And this Germanic scout rider is going to easily get a hold of this Syrian archer. So this is a great deal because this Germanic scout rider is like 460 talents, and this Syrian heavy archer is close to 600. And then look, because his archers are in skirmish, they force out this way, which means that they'll now be vulnerable to my noble Cav who's chasing him down. So this gives me an advantage over him in terms of skirmishers finally, which I would have probably not had with my only 3 slingers versus his heavy archers. If my opponent wouldn't have made this mistake, I'm not sure if or how I would have won this game, because if I lost all my skirmishers, I would have to at least kill a substantial number of his with my slingers to not get completely killed while charging. And then of course my goal was to use this spear levy to absorb the charge of his legionnaires to give my berserkers the best chance of getting into combat unmolested. Now he did get behind me a second ago with his Numidian Cav and threw some javelins, and I kid you not, that was 1 volley, and you know how many kills that these units don't normally get as far as missile Cav, and they killed 13 of my berserkers in 1 volley. You can see that right here. I had to chase him off with slingers. So it's really a good thing that my opponent kind of mismicroed that Numidian Cav, because this is how vulnerable berserkers are to missile fire. So if you're going to bring them, you have to keep them safe, preferably in a forest, hidden. But in this map, I don't really have that option. And you can see me back here chasing around his skirmishers. I've got my heroic riders here. I charged his gladiators downhill thinking this would be an easy route. And it didn't really go the way I expected it to. The gladiators got beat bad on the charge, but then they just start ripping my Cav to bits. And I'm guessing it's because of that 67 attack they have. They must have more of a bracing bonus now than they used to have, because used to you could slam into gladiators in the charge and they would just instantly rout. So yeah, those gladiators sit there and start to hold their own now. And my Germanic scout riders die in here trying to take out more of his Syrian archers. Meanwhile, my slingers have been firing, and then I charged my berserkers downhill while his archers were busy, so my Cav distracted his archers long enough for me to get a free charge with my berserkers, basically. And my berserkers should do quite well in this fight. They're very good units. And then I charged my Wodenaz spears in, and then I hit him from the flank at the same time with my Night Hunters. And this is to try and get the full-on scare effect. And you can see that if I put this down here, it says frightened by enemy unit. And that should be coming from my berserkers and my Night Raiders, plus I have an outflanking maneuver. I've got Night Raiders coming in for a rear charge as well. This is to deliver the final morale blow, basically. So here comes my German Night Hunters in behind the Legionnaires. And you can see that now I get a chain route. So Germany is capable of causing a chain route on statistically superior units like Rome, but in this case it required that my opponent made a lot of mistakes for me to ever be able to get in this position, and it's going to be challenging for you as Suebi in my opinion, but I'm sure there's ways to do it. You saw what these berserkers were capable of, and look, the Roman units are routing with a good number of men left. So yeah, it's quite possible for you to cause these chain routes, but you're going to have some good maneuvering, I think, and a little bit of luck. As always with an ambush battle, it always requires a little bit of luck. if you look at my Berserkers, they did alright. I would have liked to have seen more kills out of them, to be honest. Trying to look at some of my other units there. My Wodenaz Spears, one of them performed pretty admirably, all things considered for a spear unit against Legionnaires. Slingers didn't do all that much, really. That most of those kills were probably against Numidian Cav. They really couldn't do much to a Roman Legionnaire head-on. And then my Noble Cav did well, of course. So you can see that by the low number of kills that I got here, most of his army routed without me being able to kill it. Now, so I don't have a lot of kills on my units, but if you look at the Roman infantry, really bad for all of them. So this shows you that they did rout with quite a few men left when they routed. Some of them must have been killed during the rout. But in any case, hope you all enjoyed that. Little look into what the Suebi are like. Don't expect to be able to get on and pull this off every time with Suebi, but be creative. I think there's some ways to make these guys work, and if you guys have already figured it out, leave me a message in the comments and let me know what your Suebi build is, and I'll try and give it a try. Anyway, HeirofCarthage, signing off for now.